Hey everybody, welcome to another vlog. I decided I wanted to do a vlog because I haven't for a while, and I had a fun idea for like a series of vlogs that I wanted to do over the next, I don't know, while. And so we're going to kick it off today. This is going to be reading nostalgia. This book in particular inspired this whole concept in that I found a copy of Christopher Pike's Remember Me at Barnes & Noble several months ago, like maybe 6 months ago. And I just thought it was so cool because they've got new covers. And this was my favorite book when I was in middle school. And I wanted to see if it still held up. I was obsessed with Christopher Pike. He was sort of my gateway into horror. I skipped right over R.L. Stine. I don't think I ever even read Goosebumps or any of that stuff, and went straight to Christopher Pike. And then from Christopher Pike, I dove right into like John Saul and Stephen King. So I just remember this book blowing my mind when I was in middle school. Like, it was maybe the first book I'd ever read that had like a real plot twist, and I didn't expect it. And when it happened, I remember just like being blown away by the concept of the story and wanting to read like everything Christopher Pike had ever written. And so I don't know. I really don't know if this is even a good book. I don't know if I'm gonna like cringe my way through this or if I'm gonna enjoy it. I don't know. But I'm very excited to find out. So I'm gonna be reading this over the next day or three. I don't think it's gonna take me a super long time to read. And I just kind of share with you my thoughts as I'm reading it. I also saw that there's a podcast called The Pike Cast, which I've never listened to, but I know it exists, where they talk about Christopher Pike's books. And I saw they just did an episode with Grady Hendrix talking about Remember Me. And so I absolutely desperately want to listen to that, but I don't want to listen to it until I've read it again because I kind of know what this is, but I don't remember it very well. So I'm going to give you my very sketchy synopsis from like the fact that I haven't read this since I was probably like 14 years old, 13 years old, somewhere in there. So my synopsis isn't probably going to be accurate at all, but from what I remember, this is a story of a girl who dies at the beginning of the book. That's not a spoiler. And because that's like what the book is about, her being dead. And she is now a ghost and is trying to solve her murder. She knows she was killed, but she doesn't know who did it or why. And so she's like trying to solve the murder as a ghost. I just like remember it being such a crazy, cool story. And like I said, the plot twist blew my mind. And I just want to know, is it a good book? Will I read this now and like have like that great nostalgic feeling I get when reading a favorite book? Or am I going to read this and go, oh, why did I ever like this? I don't know. So join me, if you will, as we find out. So I've now read the first 75 pages of Remember Me. And it's funny how much I remembered and how much I didn't. So the things that stuck out to me that I remembered were small detail things, because I know like the very basic idea of what happens in the story because I have read it a bunch of times. Like I read this book dozens of times when I was in middle school. It was my absolute favorite. And now I can understand why. The writing is fine. Like it's not bad, but it's very tropey. The beginning of this book is set up like very similarly to like the beginning of a slasher movie, how you are introduced to this group of teenagers and they're all kind of behaving badly and everyone's happy and making jokes, but like there's this underlying tension. So there's a lot of that. I can definitely see why like 12-year-old, 13-year-old Emily really loved this book, because this is really more older YA. Like the characters in this book are all like seniors in high school. We're talking 18-year-olds, and they're talking about sex and drugs and all of that. And so I can see why I would have been like, this is so edgy. And so, like, reading it now, I'm like, oh, I see. I understand why I thought this book was great. But I also, like, there's a few things in here that I just find a little weird. Like, the main character, Sherry, talks about her brother in a way that's a little squicky. She talks, oh, he's very handsome, and like thinks about his shirtless body and his muscular arms, and like, I don't know. Reading it now as an adult, I'm like, that's not how most girls think of their brothers. Like, that felt weird to me. but overall, like, I'm enjoying this, like, throwback to my youth. So yeah, I'm like 75 pages in. Things are just starting to happen. And yeah, I will update you guys more when I read a little more. I am about to hit the climax of this book. I'm like 70% in. I think I just logged it on Goodreads. So I'm like 70% of the way. So I thought I'd pop in for a minute and talk about my thoughts so far. So like I said, I started this video saying this was like my favorite book when I was in middle school. So 12, 13-year-old Emily was obsessed with this book by Christopher Pike. I remember telling my friends that they had to read it, like raving about it, basically. And reading it now as an adult with a completely different perspective on life. Like, it's not great. This story is weird, and there's a lot of stuff that makes me cringe. Like, the main character, Sherry, is pretty much a terrible person. Like, I am not sympathizing with her at all. I don't know if I did. I must have, when I read this originally, like, thought she was cool. And, like, were I to be a ghost, I'd want to be like her and, like, solve my murder and that kind of stuff. And there are elements of that that are interesting, like the fact that she, as a ghost, can't, like, walk through walls and stuff and still feels pain because in her mind she doesn't quite, like, comprehend that she can do those things, even though she's told she can. Like, she can't quite bend her mind around it, and so, like, she's stumbling around, like, she can't walk through walls, she has to wait until someone opens a door and that kind of stuff. So I do like that. I like the concept of the ghost stuff, but she's just supremely unlikable. There's so much slut shaming in this story. And she like is very, like, angry about other girls being around her brother, being around her boyfriend, or who she thought was her boyfriend. And there's lots of that going on. Also, her relationship with her brother feels a little squicky. Just the way she talks about him, and he's always, like, shirtless. He's sleeping in his underwear, and she's always talking about how muscular he is and how handsome. And I'm just like, that's your brother. Stop it. And she's also, like, super jealous of her brother's girlfriend, which still, like, I don't know. There's something going on there. And, like, while I do remember the outcome of the story, like, I know where this is going, sort of, I don't remember the details of it. So I'm very interested to see, like, where this goes, because there's some stuff that just feels icky. And I don't know. Like, I understand why I liked it. Like, I clearly thought, like, I was just super edgy and, like, this is, like, a grown-up book and that kind of stuff, because there's a lot of talk about sex and drugs and that kind of stuff. So, like, drinking at parties, like, it's definitely more edgy than, say, Goosebumps. But is it good literature? I wouldn't quite qualify it as that. I'm enjoying it, though. It's, like, it's fun. I'm having a lot of fun, like, going back and thinking about all the stuff that I read as a kid, like, and thought was great. I'm wondering what else, like, what other terrible opinions I held about books. I need to go back and do some rereading of a lot of things. I think a lot of the stuff I read when I was younger still holds up. Like, I was a big fan of Stephen King. This was my gateway to Stephen King. Like, I found adult horror via Christopher Pike. So for that, it was great. I'm wondering too, like, if this is just maybe not one of Christopher Pike's best books. I read a few of his others. I can't remember what off the top of my head, but I'm gonna have to go look up his backlist and see what else there is that I remember. Maybe I'll pick up a different one. But for context, like, I was a messed up kid. I really got into some dark horror weirdness. Like, I was obsessed with the occult as a tween. I thought, like, the whole idea. I remember one of my friends who was very religious trying to tell me about how, you know, like, me was going to go to hell because I'm a Jew and I needed to learn more about Jesus. And she had a pamphlet about the occult and Satan worship, and I stole it from her. And I was just like obsessed with that. I'm like, that is the craziest stuff I'd ever. I was a weird kid. But anyway, she was clearly concerned for my soul as well because I read stuff like this. Anyway, crazy tangent. I'm going to try to finish this either tonight or tomorrow. I'm really tired right now, and my allergies are absolutely killing me. Like, it's been rough this last couple of days. You can probably tell my voice. I don't sound healthy. My spring allergies are really bad. And now I'm rambling, so I'm gonna go and read some more. And I'll update you guys when I come back. I'm gonna have finished it, and I'm gonna have listened to the podcast. And we're gonna have my final thoughts on Christopher Pike's Remember Me. I finished. And I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't know, like, how to talk about this without being spoilery. So that being said, I'm going to keep the spoilers in this part of the video to a minimum, but later I'll let you know, and it's going to get spoilery. So the plot twist was not... I knew there was a plot twist. Like, obviously, I remember being shocked by this book, but I had forgotten what it was. And so it got me by surprise again. And I mean, obviously, I read it and went, oh, that's right. But I still, like, had completely forgotten that is what happens in the book. And it still worked, but it's also very... This whole book is very, like, after-school movie in tone. And I don't know, maybe that's why I liked it, because it wasn't... It was maybe one of the first horror books that I'd read that wasn't actually what I would consider horror. It wasn't scary. Like, it had more to do with the occult and the realm of death and that sort of thing, which appealed to me as a young child, apparently. And, like, I still found it kind of an interesting concept. Like, I don't know, the idea of afterlife and what happens when you die has always fascinated me, but I'm also of the mind that, like, nothing happens after you die. Like, I like the idea of the stories people tell, but I also kind of don't think any of that would happen. And so reading about stuff like that is always interesting to me. So that part of the story I enjoyed. I'm going to say I give this 3 stars. The writing's not great. I enjoyed the nostalgicness of it. I enjoyed, like, reminiscing about, like, what I was like at that age and why this book in particular would appeal to me. But, like, it's not a good book. It's not terrible. I've read worse, but it's not great. But I can understand why I enjoyed it when I did. So I don't know. I'm now going to listen to the Pike cast because I'm just dying to see what they have to say about it, and it's Grady Hendrix, so, like, I'm sure it's going to be insightful and fun. So I'm going to listen to that, and then I'm going to come back with my final thoughts, which I will probably have spoilers, because I don't know how to talk about some of these things without spoiling the book, but I'm hoping that you guys have read it too, or maybe, like, way back in the day, and you remember it, or that you don't care. Like, this isn't a book that I'm recommending to people. This is more for just, like, my own pleasure and reminiscing. So don't think that I'm, like, telling you to go pick this up. I'm not. Like, you can, obviously. Like, maybe you read it too and you want to remember. Fine. But, like, this isn't a book recommendation video. So I'm going to go and I'm going to listen to the podcast, and then I'll come back with my final thoughts. Okay, so let's talk final thoughts about Remember Me by Christopher Pike. So I just listened to the podcast. If you have any interest whatsoever in Christopher Pike and his work, I highly recommend listening to the Pike cast. I'll leave a link. Because it was just so much fun. I enjoyed that so thoroughly that I'm like, I need to read more of Christopher Pike's work so I can go back and like listen to other episodes, because I feel like I would get the most out of the podcast if I too had read the book, like a book club. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. So highly recommend that. So my final thoughts. Let's talk this book out. So for the record, we're going to get to spoilers in this section. Like, I'm going to talk spoilers because like I want to just sort of hash out my thoughts. So if you want to read this book and you don't want to know how it ends or what the plot twist is or any of that, then you might want to end the video here. But I'm assuming that most of you don't care. I think Christopher Pike is definitely a writer of his time. So this felt very much like it's set in 1989. We have our vapid Valley girls and that sort of thing, and just teenagers being really selfish and thinking about themselves more than thinking about, say, like important things in life and like stuff like that. So our main character, Sherry, is a teenage girl, typical rich teenage girl. Like, her parents are very well off. She's gifted a Ferrari for her birthday, and you know, they've set it up that they're a very well-off family. But her brother never seems to be well off. Like, he's an odd character. And their relationship between Sherry and Jimmy is uncomfortable. Like, and I don't know if it was intended to be uncomfortable like that, because I feel like they're supposed to have this like great brother-sister bond, but also she thinks about how hot he is and he's so muscular, and she's always jealous of his girlfriend and that sort of thing. And it's just like uncomfortable. Like, it's not my favorite thing to read about. So right away, like, something feels off about this. So she dies fairly early on, like 4 or 5 chapters in, I think. She's murdered. And then the rest of the book is her as a ghost, dealing with the fact that she's a ghost and understanding this weird afterlife and solving her murder, because everyone thinks she killed herself. And there was like a very dramatic moment at a party where she like storms off and is on the balcony, and then everyone's like, oh no, she's dead. So there's this whole like, who did it? And going into this, I remembered who did the murder, but I didn't remember why. And it had been like a long time since I read this. I read my copy of this book cover to cover dozens of times. Like, I read it a lot. And then I loaned it to a friend and never got it back. And so I stopped reading it after a while, like, because I didn't have it anymore. And this was back when, like, you couldn't just, like, go get a new copy on Amazon or anything. So, like, I just never read it again. And so it's been a good 30 years since I read this. And I honestly did not remember half of the plot. So I'm going to start with the afterlife stuff, because that was probably my favorite part of the book, was the whole, like, concept of how this afterlife works. I really enjoyed that. I like that she's a ghost, but like, she still feels like she's human, and she almost doesn't realize at first that she is a ghost, because like, it's weird, she can't touch things, she can't move things, but like, she's still here, she can hear everybody, she can see everybody. Like, she still feels pain if she stubs her toe, but like, she can't make anything happen, and she can't talk to anybody. But as like the story progresses, she starts to learn how this works, and like, I don't know, I like that. I also liked that we get set up at the beginning of the book with like her remembering this guy who died a few years ago, but like, she really liked him, and they weren't a thing, but like, she wanted to date him and that sort of stuff. And so then, like, when she's dead and she's a ghost, she finds him in the afterlife, and he's supposed to help her. So that, I really liked that. And I remember as a teenager being in my mind going like, can ghosts date? Like, can they date now? Like, ghost couple. Like, so like I remembered that stuff, and I really enjoy that. I just like I liked the concept of like being on this plane but not being able to affect anything at first, but like learning how to like maneuver, learning how to like astral project and go through things. And like she does a lot of like sneaking in to open windows and open doors and like hitching rides in a car if she can get in before they close the door and that kind of stuff. So like I don't know, I really enjoyed that part of the book. The murder mystery aspect to me, I don't know. I remember it being much cooler. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. And like there's this whole scene where Garrett, who is the like police investigator, is talking to the teenagers who were at the party when this happened, and they're explaining where everybody was in the apartment, and it literally makes zero sense. Like I don't know who was where and when, but like he keeps writing it down. He draws a whole diagram, and it's just like, what? I don't get it. And I don't know if that's me being dumb, but like it just doesn't make sense. And so like that part of the story, like I don't know, I kind of start zoning out. And Sherry is also, she's like very vapid. She's not a likable character. And even though I think she's supposed to show some growth in death, like looking back on her life, she's seeing things that like maybe she should have noticed and that kind of stuff, but I still just feel like she's not likable. I don't know. I didn't like her as a character. I like Peter, the other ghost, much more than I liked her. Although he too is just like lying to her a lot of the time. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about being a ghost either. And they're both just like bumbling through, which partially I did like that. The actual like plot twist of this story blew my mind when I read it as like an 11, 12, 13-year-old. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what year I read this, but I know I was in middle school. So it's probably like 13, 12, somewhere in there. And I remember this just being like a whoa, like kind of story, but and it does have that like weirdness to it. So basically, spoiler, the plot twist is that the girl that kills her, Amanda, does so because they were switched at birth. And she's dating Jimmy. So she's dating essentially her brother. And they're having this really intense boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, but they're siblings. And Sherry isn't Jimmy's sister. So I guess I shouldn't be too weirded out by the fact that she's attracted to her brother, but because it's not her brother, but also it kind of still is. And so there's this whole weird incest plot, and it's very like uncomfortable to read. Especially considering that this is a book aimed at teens. At young teens at that. Like, I don't know, the target audience Christopher Pike is writing to in the 80s and stuff is definitely like a step up from Goosebumps. So that whole plot is just really weird and uncomfortable to read. More so because, and I'm not explaining this well because I'm tired right now, but essentially Sherry has like this really great relationship with Amanda, the murderer, her mother, because that's her actual mother, although she doesn't know that they're related. And her best friend, Joe, is her half-sister. Like, it's just that there's a whole weird family element happening in the story about two babies switched at birth because of the two sisters. I'm rambling and I'm not making any sense. So there's this whole plot with incest and babies switched at birth, and that's the motive as to why Amanda would kill Sherry, but then also try to kill her boyfriend. Because I guess if she can't be with him, then he must die, is essentially the motive, which doesn't make sense. Also, I find it weird that the clues that we're given that Amanda and Jimmy are related or that they're both colorblind, and they're both diabetic. And so I'm like, is it that common that siblings would both have those traits? Like, I don't feel like that's a very common thing. And I don't know. That stuff is a little weird to me. I think it makes more sense that they look alike than that they're both colorblind and also both have diabetes. And so that's weird to me, but whatever. I can let it pass because okay, fine. They have this weird connection because of that. And so anyway, it's a weird book, but I know why I liked it. I get it. I understand my own edginess as a preteen to think that this was like amazing literature and that I had to get my friends to read. I don't know. Christopher Pike is one of those authors, I think, where you either really like it or you don't. And I think having read as much as I've read now at this point in my life, this isn't great, but it isn't bad. Like, this is what I would call fun fluff. And I thoroughly enjoyed my reread. And I'm probably gonna pick something else up too, because I'm trying to remember like what else I read. I know I've read other books he wrote. I know for sure I read Monster. But I can't think of what else I've read. And I went to go look and see if like I can order some, and I guess I can't. They haven't reprinted everything. I do still own a few of my copies. So I do have a few of his other books. I have, what do I have here? Yeah, I have The Last Vampire 1 and 2, which I don't know if I read those. I might have. I must have if I own them. And I also have a copy of Scavenger Hunt, which is a book I have no memory of whatsoever. So yeah, maybe I'll read one of those. If you guys are interested. Do you want me to vlog it? Like, I don't know. I'm not sure this was that entertaining. We'll see, I guess, when I edit, if this was worth watching back. So yeah, I gave this book 3 stars. I think I hold some affection for it out of pure nostalgia. If I picked this up randomly, having never read it before, right now in my life, I don't know that it would have had any kind of I probably would have DNF'd it, to be fair. Because, like, it started to get somewhat boring when the police investigation started. And, like, I don't know. But I think the fact that I had such a, like, great memory of this book, it made the reread a lot more fun. So if you want to see more videos like this, I have other books that I feel some deep nostalgia for that I haven't read in a really long time. Let me know if you're interested in seeing me talk about books like this, because it's kind of fun to go back. Like, I don't do it very often because I think I'll start to feel depressed about how bad my taste was as a young teen. But this was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you're interested in seeing anything else. If there's a Christopher Pike that I showed you here that you want me to read or search out, like, I definitely want to get my hands on a copy of Monsters, because I remember thinking that book was just like the most gory, chaotic stuff I'd ever read. But, like, obviously that was like right before I picked up Stephen King, so maybe it's not as bad as I remember. I don't know. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.